Welcome to the final week of Lit 4121, Mythology of Heroes and Villains. Hopefully, you've made it this far without losing your mind with all the viewings and readings you have to do, but we only have one more week to go, and it's a fairly short week, but I do want to talk about some overall concepts. First of all, of course, you want to talk about this show, NCIS. I want to make a point that I didn't bring up this show specifically because I thought it was a great example of heroic myth, but this is the kind of heroic myth we see a lot of. This is a genre that you're all completely familiar with. It's called a crime procedural. And it is a certain kind of heroic myth that we haven't talked a lot about. But what it is we get heroes, such as the characters here, who are brilliant crime solvers. And just like any other heroic myth, they may not seem like they're superheroes or they have special abilities, but they are able to solve crimes. They're able to detect the truth. They're able to make the world, which is often complex and scary and often things that we can't entirely understand, into something that we know will be resolved. Crime, if any of you have been unfortunate enough to experience it, is a often confusing thing. It's often confusing. It's often messy because motivations may not be clear. What happens is not always clear. Not very many crimes get solved. But a show like NCIS is indicative of this belief that we can, just with the right kind of attitude and the right team and the characters such as Leroy Jethro Gibbs or whoever else, whatever Sherlock is in that role, we can solve crimes and we can make the world better. This is every bit as much as of a heroic figure as any other character we've studied. And is a mythology because in the real world it is much harder to be a cop and a detective than this shows. This is the heroic myth that most people in the world are actually paying attention to. NCIS is still the most watched scripted drama in America right now. And so everybody's taking in this myth and forming their ideas of what it means to be a hero from this. It's strong, it's masculine in this case, it doesn't talk very much, it has a whole bunch of different attitudes, and is always never and always right, never fails to catch the bad guy. And these are the same kind of myths. They have the special powers of their skills, and they go through their journeys. And quite often, you'll see them go through multiple journeys because this show specifically has gone on so long. So showing you the first episode isn't to go to trying to say this is a great example of heroes. It's trying to say here is something we are all looking at right now as a heroic myth. Also, we have the notes section from the book. This isn't important to go through. This is why it's optional. It gives you a bunch of other things you can look at, other sources of reading, writing, shows, films, whatever else, to help you kind of further your own knowledge, to understand these concepts more if you want to look at more examples. I'm a big fan of always keeping your eye open for how these things work, why we pay so much attention to them, and just looking at everywhere you go to kind of ask questions. What is this like? You don't always have to compare everything to the views of the heroic journey in Campbell. As I said before, that is a limited way of analyzing things. It's useful, but it's hardly the only way to go about it, nor is it the most accurate. But you can see here in all these different, and my writings about this are talking about how there are myths and ideas all over the place. Some we didn't go into much detail with was Greek myths. One of the reasons I didn't go into the Greek myths that closely is because it's very common for people to understand these. There's usually some story from the Greek myths, often the Odyssey or the Iliad, but things related to this that we all learn as we're coming up through school. But it is well worth looking at the actual myths, the actual text from back then, or very good translations and explanations of them. Among other things, the Greek gods were noted and almost infamous for their failures and their inability to actually get along, their squabbles, their wars, that sort of thing. Another thing is to pay attention to how we keep reinterpreting these myths. One of the main points of a myth is a story that doesn't just get told, but gets retold and retold, reimagined, the characters change. So this is, for example, is Thor, the thunder god from Norse mythology, an old painting of what he was described as. He has his two goats carrying his chariot. There's Mjolnir, his hammer up there that he uses to kill things. He knows how small it is. It's a stunted war hammer. He is a young man. In this one, he actually has blonde hair, although he is usually described as having reddish hair and a bristling beard. And here he is just laying about him and killing giants. This is an ancient conception of him, a little bit changed for European ideas, but this is what Thor is often what. Now, this is what everybody sees Thor as now, because he's now a character in the movies, and he was changed for comics, then he was changed again for the movies. And each movie, there's been three plus the Avengers movies, has had yet another take on the character. Each one of these reimagines the myth, and they are added to the overall body of the myth. Which version of the myth is going to be told in the future? Who knows? It's very likely that there have been millions more people who saw this version than are aware of the ancient version in its how it was originally described. And it's well worth looking at both. Here's another example of the crime-solving character, Miss Fisher, Murder Mysteries. This combines other myths. This is the femme fatale. This is myths of 1920s. This is myths of detectives and all that sort of thing. And it's well worth looking at this and seeing how, again, even these myths get reinterpreted all the time. The person who solves the crimes for us may be different in all sorts of ways. Here are many other myths. These are some of the books written by Rick Riordan, which if any of you have kids or younger siblings, you probably have heard of these. This is, again, how the myths are getting reinterpreted. Percy Jackson and all these characters are not themselves people who appear in the myths, but they borrow from the myths, they embody parts of the myths, and they often retell mythical stories from a modern context. So hopefully, as you go on out of this class, you can start seeing all these connections and how these myths inform our storytelling now, and how the stories we look at now may or may not be myths in the long run. Rather than writing for the week 6 discussion, I don't really need you to give a strong response. And you don't have to talk to each other. If you wish to, that's fine. Um, I said you would need to respond to 3 other posts. Spoiler alert: if you do, that's great. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You're all going to get decent grades on this week. The reason I say that is because it can often be hard to remember to come back to this as you're trying to finish the research papers. I do want you to do at least the initial post, though, and I would appreciate responses to each other to get further discussion. And it's just how'd you like the class? I'm always trying to improve, find other ways to teach, and other better ways to do things. Especially since I'm still getting used to the online teaching world, just like you hopefully are learning how to be an online student. So give me ideas. What other things did you learn from this? And of course, if you want to make suggestions about your favorite hero or villain story, and if you would like to just mention some things you think would help the course, just let me know. And of course, the main work you'll be doing this week is on the research paper. It'll be 1,200 to 1,500 words. I'm not going to be a major stickler for that, but you should try to get close to 1,250. That is several pages, but it's about 5 or 6 pages, but it is not a horrible amount of work because you've already done a lot of thinking, you've done a lot of analysis, and now you can actually go deeper. You'll notice that quite often my responses to your analysis is give me more solid examples, think more deeply, ask more questions about this. And so this is your chance to do that. Since none of you shot me emails about how the research paper should work, I'm assuming that you're all comfortable and confident about it. But if not, let me know. And obviously we have the research presentation. This is going to be low stakes. It's a small part of the grade, but it is important that you know how to present your information in more than one way. So what I want you to do is come with some visual and graphic aids. I don't need you to just give me bullet points of the points from your paper, which if you can find an image or a way to present what you were talking about in your paper, in your research paper, so that other people in the class can scroll through them and kind of get ideas from them and that sort of thing. So it should be about 10 to 15 slides, and or if you choose to record a video of your own, it should last for about 5 or 6 minutes. All right. If there are any questions, as always, you can shoot me an email or post online, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.